again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John. Thank you, as always, for being here. Straightforward topic. Here we go. What scared the absolute shit out of you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I've flown all my life, probably at least 100 times before the age of 13, but when I was 13, we were taking off from Miami Airport when all of a sudden, I hear what sounds like a bunch of rocks being thrown into a blender. I look out the window and there was fire coming out of the plane's right engine. A few people screamed, some were petrified. The back of the plane started tilting backwards like it was being dropped out of a dump truck. Right about that time, the kids in front of me were screaming to their parents, "Are we gonna die?" And their parents didn't even answer them. To this day, I've never felt fear like it. My whole body was pulsating with adrenaline. It felt lighter than air. It didn't stop until an hour and a half later after we had landed, had dinner, and left for a hotel. I'm pretty sure I got a mild case of PTSD from it, because for years after that, I would start to panic days before a flight. I would look for any excuse not to fly. I'm much more sympathetic to people with phobias now. I eventually got through mine, only because I didn't have a choice. I'm fine with flying today, and when we get bad turbulence, it doesn't even faze me because I know what it feels like when a plane is actually losing control. That fear was a 10 of 10. The closest I've come since is maybe 2 or 3 out of 10. Back when I was in the Army, I was a crew chief on helicopters. There are a few stories from that time that absolutely terrify me, but the worst was stateside. 3 smaller helicopters in front, we were in the rear because we were faster. We were formed up in a staggered line, basically a zigzag, crossing over a mountain range, so pretty high up, probably 9,000 feet or so. There's a few hundred feet or so between the aircraft. It was the end of a long day, and the 3 other guys with me are all just kinda quiet and zoned out. The formation isn't super strict, so it's like a slinky expanding and contracting all the time. I'm sitting on the right side, looking out to the mountains, almost dozing off. I look up front and out of the cockpit, and metal fills my vision. There's just enough time to see the open mouth, and we're close enough that I clearly saw the gold tooth of my screaming counterpart in the aircraft ahead of us. This is way, way, way too close. We were now slightly lower than them, and our rotors were below theirs. One wrong movement, and our rotors would have shredded each other. Now, if there are 2 pilots in an aircraft, you have what's called a pilot in command, who is usually the most experienced and is overseeing and coaching the junior pilot. In this instance, the junior pilot was in control of the aircraft, and I guess he wasn't paying attention. An updraft from the mountain disturbed the helicopter in front of us, slowing it down dramatically. He should have been expecting this on a mountain range. He was kind of an idiot. The senior pilot grabs the controls and simultaneously drops the collective, our elevation control, and yanks the stick as hard as he can to get right so violently that we almost went upside down in an effort to turn us away. That man saved a lot of lives that day. If he had been a millisecond slower to respond, we would have hit that aircraft, and I'm not sure anyone would have realized what happened. I still can't believe how fast it happened, and I have nightmares years later. TL, DR, helicopters fast, pilot sleepy, didn't react to change in airspeed in formation flight. Badass PIC from Mississippi saves 8+ lives by not hesitating and knowing exactly what to do. My computer's HDD dying. It started making the occasional meowing noise, and I didn't know it came from the HDD at first. I thought I had an effing cat somewhere in the apartment, and sometimes at night I would wake up hearing a faint meow coming from inside my bedroom, and there's no cat to be found. I was almost convinced it was my late cat coming back to haunt me. Super creepy. I saw the film The Ring when I was about 13, and I swear that girl haunted my nightmares for years after. Like, I still can't and won't watch the video even in the film. I have to hide behind my fingers just in case. Somehow this came up with my college roommates, who all thought it was the funniest shit that I was still so scared of her as an adult. So, one day I'm casually working at an assignment, and I pop out to the loo on the floor above. I come back to my room and continue working for another 2 to 3 hours. I'm pretty tired, and it's gotten dark out. I save up and close the documents, and holy mother of... I nearly threw the damn laptop across the room. One of the roommates had snuck in during my loo break and changed my desktop background to a close-up of the girl's face, and then casually maximized the Word doc back up if nothing had changed. Left and waited. I'm still holding a grudge. I see what you did there.
I don't know if it was intentional or by accident that you ended that story with holding a grudge, another film that scared some people, but that's what I meant by saying I saw what you did there. Also, I had the same experience with Nightmare on Elm Street. I saw it way too young in like 1984. I was like 7. Freaked me out for decades.
Went for a day-night hike through the bush with some mates. One of us got really sick and we needed to get to a road quickly to get him home. Found a massive field and figured we'd cross it, hoping that would lead to a road. The field was empty, but it had deer fences up, so we knew there were some kind of large animals living there. Anyway, my friend was throwing up a lot, so we got moving across the field. There was a hill in the middle of the field, so we couldn't see the other side. Lo and behold, from behind the hill came 2 massive stags, horns and all. Those effers are A, incredibly menacing with their huge antlers, and B, insanely quick. We bolted for the nearest fence. Myself and a buddy lifted the sick guy over the fence and then quickly followed suit. Not till after we cleared the fence did we all, including the deer, look at each other with a what the F expression on our faces. We continued on and found a road, got picked up, and got out of there. Setting: a small town in rural Canada during the infamous clown summer of 2016. Teenage me was out for a late-night run on a popular walking trail made from a converted railway. Long, straight, and completely flat. A clear night, but the trees in that section had grown in enough to form a sort of canopy that covered the trail, so there was little to no moonlight getting through. I could see just enough to tell where the edges of the trail were. I was headed away from the town, and all the buildings were now behind me. Just woods and farmer fields ahead. I usually ran with headphones in, but for some reason, I'd either forgotten them or just didn't have them in at that specific time due to the dark. I can't exactly remember. What I do remember is hearing the sound of a small engine starting up. This is the only time I've ever actually experienced fight or flight in its full capacity. There was literally no thought process, just that nauseating jolt of terror that goes right up your spine. And the next thing I knew, I was running full tilt back towards town with the mental image of a chainsaw-wielding clown on my heels. Now, I was a pretty fit guy that summer. I was gymming and running almost every day, and it really showed in that moment. Adrenaline fueled me, was effing flying. But it still wasn't enough to beat my pursuer, because the sound of the engine grew steadily closer, and I knew that they were catching up. My shadow appeared on the ground in front of me as a light approached me from behind. And that's when I had the horrifying realization that I was going to be caught. Up ahead, the track made a gentle curve to the right, and I knew that just beyond it was a side trail with more twists and turns. I was far enough ahead that rounding the bend allowed me to escape the beam of light, and I knew this would be my last opportunity to hide if I could. Seizing the opportunity, I took the side trail, ran in about 100 meters, then dove into the woods to hide. A few seconds later, while crouched in the bushes, I watched the dirt bike rip by me. I spent the next few minutes completely immobilized with embarrassment, covered in scratches from diving blindly through the brush before gathering myself up and doing the walk of shame home. Went to get drive-through at 2 a.m. before studying for an exam. Pulled up to the window and had just paid and noticed the guy I'd handed the cash to suddenly looked up startled. Looked over and there's a guy covered in blood running up to my car. He got to the front of my car and slammed his hands down on the hood of my car and had a gun tucked into his waistband. I reversed the F out of there and drove as fast as I could back to my boyfriend's house where he called the police. Turns out the blood had been the guy's. He'd been shot in the gut during a drug deal gone wrong. Don't know how he still managed to run up to my car. Boyfriend said washing the bloody handprints off my car was very surreal. So to set the scene, I was 18 and home from university for the summer. My parents were away for a long weekend at a wedding due back Monday evening, so I had the house to myself. Like any self-respecting student, I spent the weekend binge-watching TV series online. In this case, I picked The X-Files, as I'd never actually watched it before. I watched the entire first season in 2 days. Come Sunday night, it was like 1 a.m., and I had just finished the first season finale, and I suddenly remember something from the note left on the kitchen table. Sunday night is bin night, crap. So I pop out into my parents' back garden and discover the automatic light covering the back garden is giving up on life, and it is dark. And I mean really dark, especially in the corner by the shed where my parents keep their bins. It's a bit creepy, and I'd been watching a lot of X-Files, so this isn't lost on me. I chuckled at myself. It's like the setup for an opening of an episode with some new critter lurking somewhere. Anyway, over to the big wheelie bin I go, and in near pitch blackness I grab the handle on it and pull, and behind it are two glowing eyes. No sooner that I register their presence are they joined by a high-pitched, indescribable cry out of the darkness. I am, needless to say, surprised by this development. It is instantly Judge, some form of alien mutant thing, and it wants to feast on my soul. And then, as I am in the process of preventing my bowels from jettisoning excess mass to allow for easier escape, the eyes move towards me. A second, surreal, unearthly cry sounds out as the glowing pair of eyes close in round me the bin, and fly past me across the lawn and into the black of night. And that's why I'm not quite as much a fan of foxes as I used to be. Not too long ago, my dad had surgery to correct a disc. I believe that was pressing on his cervical spine. I forget which part exactly. Surgery went well, but the doctors believe that it was the result of a minor injury, bad fall, minor car accident, etc., somewhere between 10 to 15 years ago. Anyways, he's fine now, but unfortunately the compressed disc left him with some spinal damage, and he now has to use a walker and leg brace. I flew back to my hometown 2 months ago to visit, before spring semester began, and it was the first time I had seen my dad since his surgery. When he walks, he takes a step but kind of dips with each step forward, even while using his walker. He's in his late 40s. In that moment, I realized my dad wouldn't ever be the same. If my sister or I ever get married, he won't be able to walk us, for lack of a better term, normally down the aisle. He loved to go for drives, but now can't drive for longer than 30 minutes safely. He used to make us laugh by doing the Running Man to New Edition songs. Now his leg buckles after too long standing on it. I'm reminded every day that my parents and grandparents, I'm blessed to still have all four, are getting older. I live on the West Coast, and my family is all back in the Midwest, and I'm effing terrified. Seeing someone using a walker at the mall or an older person walking into where I work will cause me to have an anxiety attack. I regret being so combative with my parents when I was a teen. I'm scared shitless.
I don't know you or your family or your father, but I guarantee you this. If there is still air in his lungs, he will find a way to walk you down the aisle.
My father. Due to his bipolar, he's been constantly screaming and yelling and threatening to kill himself after any inconvenience for 24 years, maybe even longer, since that's just how old I am. I have PTSD and major depressive disorder myself from my time in the military and get disability pay for the severity of it, and was told by my mother that his yelling and screaming stopped on his new meds, and that was a lie. I'm now living with him and my wife, waiting for him to move out this summer. But my mental health is noticeably deteriorating, and I can barely even cope just hearing him talk in another room. It got to the point where I accidentally overdosed on my Xanax, and my wife found me passed out in my computer chair. A part of me wishes she found me dead instead of asleep. Woke up in the middle of the night with the noise of my cat's rattle toy being kicked around the room. My cat was sleeping right by my side. My bedroom's door was closed, no windows open. That just panicked the shit out of me, but I just kept myself still in my bed and I slept again. When I woke up, I checked up the toy and it really was moved from where I left it last night. I still don't know how to feel about it. Me and my friends were hanging out at the local park at 10 o'clock at night. We were walking around the park when we noticed some tall dark shadow was following us. Whenever we tried to talk to him or chase after him, he would go around a corner when he was a few feet away from us and disappear, then would always reappear right behind. We also saw a black van pull up at the park but saw no one leave or enter the van for the 2 hours it was there. It's been nearly 10 years, and we never figured out who it was or what they were trying to do, but we think it was a group of kidnappers. My brother's story, but it even freaks me out every time I go hunting. My brothers and his 16-year-old son went hunting one day, and they were about a 45-minute walk into the forest tracking some elk when this huge grizzly bear comes out of nowhere and bites my brother's leg, then swings him around by it on 1 or 2 times. His son, in full panic mode, is fumbling around for his gun, but before he can even do anything, my brother, who had his gun with him, blank fires, not even hitting the bear, but it was enough to scare it off. There's no service, so they use his coat to wrap his leg, and his son helps him back to their truck and drives him to the hospital. He's fine now, all healed up, but had a huge tooth gash in his thigh. When he was contacted about people going to look for the bear, he even told them to leave it be, and that it was probably just protecting a cub.
Getting used as a chew toy by a grizzly bear is enough to scare the shit out of you, so this is really scary. Crazy. Glad everyone made it out okay, including the bear.
Having happened recently for me. Beginning of the year, my grandfather died suddenly. My other grandfather went to the hospital the night after. He's okay. I'm at the house my grandfather lived in with his wife, helping my family make arrangements, and I decided to take his dog for a walk. I go around the street once, then start a second lap around. I near the intersecting road and start looping back around. I got a weird feeling all of a sudden, and the dog, Hershey, started barking. I look over and see a car parked in front of an abandoned house with its lights on. I think, that's kind of weird, so I pick up the pace a tiny bit. All of a sudden, I get the thought to turn back and look. That car had driven up and started to turn the corner towards me. It drives up and starts to roll its window down. It gets past me and stops in the middle of the road, and I just book it for the passenger side so he can't step out and grab me. As I begin running again, he rolls the window on the side down and says, "Everything all right?" and just smiles at me. I'm slowly backing away, trying not to let on that I know what's going on here before he eventually seems to give up and move on. I manage to get back to the house, and I'm shaking the entire time. Didn't even think to grab the plate number, and am mentally kicking myself for it. This is going to seem very strange. When I was 12, I was obsessed with Undertale. This was when the game was at its height of popularity. I wanted to hack the game for more gold, the in-game currency. I found a tutorial online and followed exactly what to do, but I forgot a crucial step. When changing the current values of the game in the file, you cannot go past 9999. I spammed the number 9, and then saved the file and opened Undertale. All that was left when I opened my file was a black screen and a small white dog dancing to a funky tune. It was that blasted annoying dog, Toby Fox's canine self-insert. It scared me so bad that I closed the game. I did not expect that to happen. It turned out that I put a value that does not exist into the line that tracked the amount of gold in-game. That prompts an error screen to trigger open. The game is very self-aware of what the player does, and it punishes them in many ways. This is one of them, and you deserve it. I was laying in my bed at night just watching some YouTube. Then all of a sudden, a book flew off my bed. Mind you, I wasn't next to it. I looked around to see if my cats knocked it over or something. When I looked outside my door is next to the bathroom, dining room, and another bedroom, and going to the dining room had a corner to get there. Peeking out from the corner was this white transparent thing that resembled a human, about 5 feet off the ground, peeking around the corner before it quickly retreated behind that corner. Also at night, I hear random noises like a clicking noise behind my couch and sobbing noises in the kitchen. So I think my house is haunted, and it's terrifying. The Momo hoax. I'm a kid. I was in a media center for specials, and I hear others talking at 2 tables away from me. I hear, "It's everywhere. It appeared on Fortnite, even YouTube Kids," and other mutters. I, already a little weirded out, ask what is happening. They tell me that Momo is making kids kill others and stuff and is appearing everywhere. TVYT Kids, Fortnite, Peppa Pig. They told me everything. I started freaking out a bit, but not showing it much. Me and my friend talked at lunch, and she told me a way to avoid it. We were scared for each other. Shortly after class, it was easy for the teacher to tell I was having a panic attack. She talked to me for a moment. She said she was scared too, having 2 very young kids. Luckily, she's a nice teacher and let me go to a counselor. We talked, and she tried her best to calm me down. I managed to make it through the rest of the school day. I come home asking my grandma if she had heard. She wasn't really very much help. My cousin comes to my house every day after school until my aunt gets off of work, so me and my cousin were also freaking out. I was also calling all my close family for some reason. I turned on the TV and the news was on. They showed a picture of Momo. I screamed and turned off the TV before I even heard anything else. I get in trouble by my dad's now ex. When Dad finally got home, I told him everything. After saying it for 100 times, Dad tells me that it was a hoax. I said, how did he know? He said the news said it several times. I didn't know because I turned the TV off. I was so relieved, but oh my God, I was so scared.